Triple Crown winner, a Breeders' Cup winner, a horse of a lifetime!
Hello and welcome to Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge for Friday, January 22nd. I'm Bobby Shoemaker, and that's Barry the Sniper Spears. 4 races, 2 at Gulfstream Park, 2 at the Great Race Place in Arcadia, California. But Barry, we're going to start things off in South Beach, Gulfstream Park Race 7. It's a 7.5 furlong turf event. A $30,000 starter optional claimer, a field of 10 for 3-year-olds, and Alsby, the 5, is your 3-1 morning line favorite.
Yeah, this is an interesting race, to say the least, especially when you get these type of horses, these optional claimers, $35,000. A lot of horses fit into this category, especially on the ground. So with the 5 that you just spoke about, Alsby, a big win on the drop last time. I really didn't like that horse that day. Kind of felt like a suspicious drop, coming from a maiden, 75,000 all the way down to 35,000. Blows out, wins by 10 and change, and then gets claimed from a good trainer in Bill Mott into the Marcus Vitale barn, who is equally, as effective. I just have my doubts here, especially 3-1 morning line. I don't think this horse is actually going to be favored, but I do think this horse might be a short price. Next, I'll talk about the 8, who is the Irish Colonel. I actually like this horse, stepping again, second time on the lawn after a brief hiatus from there. First start actually was on the lawn, ran a pretty decent number, improved the last time out at a higher price at $50,000 optional claimers, and now is dropping down a little bit. Shows a lot of speed, and I think there might be a ton of speed in here, so I'm not really sure how this horse actually fits in the big scheme of things and with the race shape. So I ended up going with number 1. I'm not really sure how to say this, but McGeeve. I think this horse stands out on figures. If we get anywhere near 5-1 after his trouble trip last out, I think this horse might be one of the better plays on the day. He's been knocking at the door, and he just looks from a speed standpoint, kind of like a standout. Should be coming late and getting up for the win.
Okay, I didn't read this race as being as much pace as you, Barry. I do think the 5 is going to end up going off the favorite. I think it's going to be because of Javier Castellano. It seems like anything he gets on, horses are bet down below that morning line. And I just look at 3-1 and a horse that did win his last start and did it by 10.5 lengths. Or 10 lengths and 3/4, and Javier getting aboard. I just think the 5 is going to go off the favorite. You actually landed on the horse that I'm picking to win, and that is the 8 Irish Colonel. I mean, Jorge Navarro is proven time and time again, especially at this racetrack, at this meet, how good of a trainer he is this time of year. And the way I look at it is, Barry, first race off the claim, he ran a bang-up race when they put him back on the lawn, as you mentioned. In that race alone, the way I calculate things, he wins. Now, he should improve, right? Second time off the claim for Jorge. I just think he's going to be in the right spot, whether it's on the lead or tracking something if things get out of hand early. And I think turning for home, he's just going to win and do it impressively. I really like the 8 here. Obviously, I'm not going to get much of a price, 4-1. It'll probably go off 2 or 3-1, depending on what the 5 does. But I think the 8's a standout here, and I look for Irish Colonel to win this race and be in hand at the 16th ball.
Well, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's kind of funny, what kind of, or it will be a little interesting to see what kind of tactics this horse is actually, or Joe Bravo is going to actually use with this horse. Because, like you said, he might want to go to the lead. He's shown a lot of speed in the past. But at least last time showed a little bit of ability to rate. He was, not too far off the lead. He was in 4th. But, it should be interesting and definitely might end up shaping up to be a pretty decent rider's race.
I think, Barry, the key, not to cut you off, I apologize, but the key here is the cutback from a mile to 7.5 furlongs. Now, you know as well as I do, horses that show speed at a mile don't necessarily show that same forwardly placed speed or on the lead at 7.5 furlongs. So I don't think the 8 needs the lead here. I think the 8 can be versatile at 7.5. I think the 7.5 furlongs distance hits him between the eyes. And again, if he's anywhere close to that effort on, was it January 2nd, the 8's a winner and does it with ease.
All right.
So we'll move on to race 9 on the Gulfstream Park card. Barry, it's the $100,000 H. Allen Jerkins Stakes Race. It's a 2-mile marathon turf event for 4-year-olds and up. So instead of 2 turns on the turf, it's 4 turns on the turf. So maybe I'll be double as good. But nevertheless, a field of 9. Charming Kitten, the 6-5 morning line favorite. Now, before you give your synopsis, we here on the Tournament Edge, Barry picks 2 races a week. I pick 2. Obviously, we're here to cover stakes races. Most of the time, to me at least, when we pick stakes races, there isn't a standout. But Barry, I apologize before you even go into this race. I did not realize how much of a standout that the Charming Kitten was. I mean, if you can find a way to beat this horse, by all means, but the numbers are there. Todd Pletcher's there. Johnny V's there. I just think that the 1 at 6-5, you just have to pick this horse and game plan your tournament the rest of the day around the 1. No offense in going first, but this is unlike any race we've done. The 1's a standout and should win unless it falls down.
Absolutely. I'm in 100% agreement with you. Actually, I should go say 1,000% agreement with you. I don't really foresee anybody in this race beating Charming Kitten. The only other horse that may end up giving a threat could be the 2, Rokia de Oro. That's the only horse that could actually challenge this one. Might get out in the lead and could give Charming Kitten a little bit of a fit. But other than that, I just see this as a 1-2 exacta. Just like you said, could be a centerpiece of even a pick 4 play, pick 5 play tournament. Just kind of a pick that horse, Charming Kitten, and move on.
So, since we didn't spend but about a minute on this race, which is unlike most races here on Tournament Talk, let's go back to Johnny V really quick as a turf rider. I have my doubts about him at times, but how do you think he's going to ride this race? I mean, the 1 looks versatile. Is this a situation where you think the 2's going to go to the lead and Johnny's going to save all the ground and be 2nd or 3rd? Or do you think he's going to send the 1? Because a lot of times, Barry, when you're on the best horse, and he's much the best, sometimes the trainer might just say, look, you're the best, avoid trouble, go to the lead. How do you see this race playing out for the 1?
Yeah, at least from a race shape perspective, I don't see really any speed. So that would leave the 2 on the lead, and the 1, obviously, with the nice draw there, can sit where Charming Kitten actually would want to be. I mean, 2nd, stalking a nice slow pace, and just finishing this race off in the end. And I just think those 2 horses run 1-2 here, and maybe with St. Albans Boy 3rd. For a nice chalky triple, but you play it for $10, $20, might make a few bucks.
Are you surprised at only a field of 9 here in a race like this? And is it because of the distance, or is it just because Charming Kitten is such a standout?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you don't see like back in the day where you see those long distance specialists, and they don't really carve races this long anymore. It used to be more common, not as common, but still, you'd see more of them. And even 1.5 miles, 1 3/8, 1 5/8 races, you would see them a lot more. You hardly ever see them anymore. Charming Kitten's already won at the distance, which is, to me, a huge advantage over the rest of these. And then based on the last race at McKnight handicap, it's basically just a rerun of that race, other than the fact that Rokia de Oro will be on the lead, probably will finish 2nd.
Okay, so, I mean, this is certainly not the play of the week, okay? The source is 6-5 morning line, and will most likely, Barry, I mean, what do you think as far as what this horse is going to go off at?
I'd say probably about 3, 4 to 5.
So we'll just move on from that. Santa Anita, we will go to the Great Race Place and go to race 6 on the card, Barry. It's down the hill, 6.5 furlongs, $58,000 allowance optional claimer for 4-year-olds and up, a field of 12. It is Loving Water, the 9, your morning line favorite. Have you decided to go with the chalk, or have you found something that can beat this horse?
If I went with the chalk, I don't think you could ever call me the sniper ever again. So, with that being said, I love these races down the downhill turf. They're always exciting. They're always competitive. You're always getting horses from all over the place running different distances. You get specialists that win at this distance a lot, and this is no doubt going to be an exciting race for something that normally would be what we would call a cheaper, state-bred race. Now, the 9, It's Living Water, looks like a standout, figure-wise. Should be a really short price here. I don't suspect the horse is going to be 5 to 2, like the morning line. I'm thinking more 2 to 1, 8 to 5, 9 to 5-ish. Probably more to the 8 to 5, because the horse has run well at this distance in this trip. But I'm not so fond of that post. Even though all the numbers with Peter Miller, everything looks like this horse is going to win this race with ease, it just almost looks too good to be true for me. So I'm going to look elsewhere. The next horse is the 2 Wade, who I took a really long look at. The horse has never been on turf before, which kind of swayed me a little bit, but has been working like a monster. Peter Urton, his barn is hot as ever. And this horse has every right to improve off of that maiden score. With that being said, that's pretty much why I opted to go against this horse in this spot. Maybe somewhere down the road you might catch this horse at a better price, in a better situation. It's tough for me, at least, to play a horse that just broke his maiden, stepping up into the company down the hill for the first time as well. If this horse
can I
wins,
ask you a question about Peter Urton really quickly? Peter's has gotten better over the last couple of years, especially at this racetrack. What are your thoughts on his improvement? Do you feel like a race like this is his strength? Take out the fact that the horse had just broke his maiden, which you and I have talked off the air. We typically play against those type of horses. Your thoughts on Peter Urton's progression, since you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about it before the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely, a force. He's getting a lot of good stock in his barn, and he places them very, very well. And that's really the key with his horses is the placing, and that's why his numbers are going up, because he's putting them in the right spots where they can win. They're not getting claimed. They're going into allowance races. They're even going up into stakes company and winning. So it wouldn't surprise me if this horse wins by any means, and he's definitely going to be a decent price.
Right.
But, it's just, like you said, we've talked before, this is just not a play that I would like in this spot. I mean, he was favored the last 4 out of 5 trips.
Right, and odds on.
And only cashed once.
Right.
So, that's a big negative in my book. So I'm opting to go with number 4, Chris's Co-Pilot. I think this horse has shown a huge improvement off his last race at Los Al. And getting the blinkers on Saturday, I think will make the difference and have this horse run a great race down the hill, showing a little bit of ability running on the turf.
Right.
So I don't think that'll be a problem. I just think this horse is really in the right spot and ready to pounce.
Yeah, I think if the 4 horse improves off the November 19th effort with the blinkers on, Barry, you might be on the winner. Spend a lot of time looking at the horse. Here's how I played this race, Barry. And we have not talked about this race before this, so this is new to you. But I looked at it as the 9 being a standout. So, but I didn't think the 9 warranted 5 to 2. And as you said, he was going to be 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 2 to 1. So I said this horse is going to be under bet for how I like to bet this race, because I think it's wide open. So let me find something that I think is similar numbers wise to the 9. So I landed on the 12 Benba. Let me explain. Both of them have been in similar type races. Both of them have been going 2 turns on the turf for quite some time, then went to dirt, flirted with that for a little bit, wasn't very successful, etc., etc. I added up the numbers. They're very similar to almost identical. I then went and watched the video. Physicality, trip, what they look like down the lane. Both of them have really early speed, which could fit going down the hill 6.5. So here's what I did. You know how you picked the 8 horse last week at Gulfstream Park over the 4 that I selected, and you said to me, Bobby, they both have very similar numbers. They both are going to set very similar trips. So I just went with the horse that's higher priced, and you run second and almost won the race. And quite frankly, I think you're on the best horse. You know, another step, you're there. So I just landed on the 12. I think he's very similar to the 9. The 9's the favorite, and rightfully so, with Flavian Pratt and all the things you talked about. So I just think, hey, I might get a better trip. I think this horse is certainly going to prove that he's good enough in this spot. And going down the hill with horses turning back in distance, I've seen it all meet long. They are successful. So I'll take a shot. 12-1 on Bimba the 12 at double-digit odds, who's running very similar numbers to a horse that's going to be below 2-1.
Yeah, and I did take a long look at Bimba, actually, because I see the form back, back in 2014. This horse was running pretty good races against pretty good competition.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing to be said for a form reversal. I mean, the horse has been running on dirt the last 2 starts, switching back to the turf. And sometimes that wakes the horse up. The only thing negative I did see was the 1 for 17 on the turf, which kind of turned me off. But I like the cutback angle, and horses of this kind of caliber can switch and reverse form very quickly. Off of a good workout, a couple good races on the dirt. Those minor little changes and even change of surface could actually put this horse over the top.
And Barry, like you said at the beginning of this, when you talked about this race might say $58,000 allowance, but I've read races that are less than this from a price perspective that have better horses in it. I mean, this is not the greatest $58,000 race in my opinion. So I think it's worth taking a shot here, 1 for 17 or not. As you mentioned, this might just be the perfect race at the perfect time for Bimba. And if the 9 does win, it's not going to hurt you that much. But I'm telling you, you take 8-5 on this 9, you better really love him because he is not a standout in this field by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all. And even a horse like number 3, El Tovar, who has a couple of wins, put together back-to-back wins, even on the at this trip, can easily wake up here and win at a price. So this is a really tough race. I mean, a lot of people like to kind of tend to stay away from cheaper horses, but this race in particular is very competitive. I think a price is imminent. It's just a matter of who's going to step up and win.
This is a race where you've got horses turning back in distance, switching surfaces, stepping down in class, stepping up in class. This is the type of race that could make you a lot of money in an exotic or a tournament play. This is the type of race, which is why we're covering it here on Tournament Talk. So last but certainly not least, and Barry, you picked this one, and boy, I get why. Race 9 at Santa Anita. It's a 6-furlong dirt event, a maiden special weight group, $56,000 for obviously 3-year-olds, a field of 12, another large field at Santa Anita, and True Brilliance, the 12th horse, your morning line favorite. Are you trying to beat this favorite as well?
Absolutely. In a race like this, you got a lot of first-time starters. You got a lot of horses working well. Even, second-time starters that look decent here. A lot of these horses look very similar on paper.
Again.
And it's going to be really, really tough to disseminate who's going to be the best horse. And that's why, I kind of did like to pick this race because it's wide open, big field, should yield a big price. That's what I'm hoping for here, especially in a contest situation. A lot of the later and bigger contests would end on a race like this. So this is definitely a key race on the weekend, especially for contest players. But I actually wasn't even going to talk about the 12. That's how much I like other horses here. The first horse I actually will speak about is the 7, Sudden Sam. Phil D'Amato is absolutely on fire. I mean, everything he seems to throw out on the racetrack is winning or finishing close in the money with several different riders that he uses. This horse in particular is out of tribal rule who actually has some good stats for early runners, and they're quite precocious.
Right.
And Phil D'Amato himself has pretty good numbers with first-time starters. These works aren't really flashy, but they're steady. The horse is getting Lasix. I can definitely see this horse winning at first asking, but I actually don't want to pick him today. I think this horse is probably going to be better down the road, maybe even going longer. Possibly even on the turf, depending. The horse outside of him is Limebird out of Dean Peterson's barn, who's not real, high-profile connections. He's riding Drayden Van Dyke, and this horse looks like the most polished out of everyone in the field, meaning that he's run 2 pretty decent races back-to-back. They gelded him after his last start.
Which is key.
Yeah. I think this horse is, from a consistency standpoint,
right,
even though they're very young, I think this horse is probably going to do the same thing he's been doing. Getting close, but not winning. So that leads me to the horse that I ended up landing on is the 5, Hot Rodden. I definitely think that Kristen Mulhall, her numbers don't speak to how good of a trainer she is first time out. She's got a lot of horses that ran in the money but didn't win for whatever reason, bad luck. But she can train, and she can get a horse to fire first time. And what really got me about this horse is the steady stream of works and the improvement almost every time, and the length of the works. There's a few 6-furlong works in there that really caught my eye, and then a nice, real fast blowout on the 17th that really sealed it for me. A lot of people don't like to play first-time starters like this, so I think the price is going to be somewhere around there. So this is the horse that I want.
Barry Spears on the 5, Hot Rodden. Bobby Shoemaker on the 5, Hot Rodden. And that's exactly the reason I went with this horse. If you look at the long work tab, 6 furlongs, building stamina, then 4 furlongs and 48, which isn't bad, and then 4 furlongs and 47, beating 69 horses home. And by the way, this field, again, is just like race 6. I mean, there's nothing blowing your doors off. And if you want to tell me that the 12 horse is the best horse in this race, he's drawing the 12 post, Barry. I mean, no thank you. In a 6.5 furlong race, no thanks. You've got to play against the 12. This 5 is the way to go. And it's a very similar situation to what I seen in last week's high-stakes game that I was playing in. I went with numbers instead of going with workouts, and it cost me. And I went back to the horse that won last week at Santa Anita, Barry, in a very similar spot to this one. It was the 10 horse. I think it was a 6.5 furlong event, which this one's 6 furlongs. Steady stream of works, blew up and paid a monster price, 22-1, something like that. So I'm with you on the 5 for several reasons. To recap, first of all, I don't think this group is that good, or the ones that have run, Barry, have not shown us that much ability. Secondly, if you want to call the 12 the best horse, drawn way outside in the sprint race, no thank you. And the steady stream of works and then the blowout just jumps off the page. I think the 5 is not only the way to go here, but the 5, Hot Rodden, is my play of the Tournament Talk Show.
Absolutely. And on the side note, my play of the day was Gulfstream Park Race 7, Majid.
There you go. So for Barry, the Sniper Spears, I'm Bobby Shoemaker, and that's Tournament Talk for Friday, January 22nd. And until next week, as always, good luck.